Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Regina Yao, the founder and president of the Pixel Project, and I am moderating the 5th Google Hangout session of the 2nd annual International Women's Day edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 11 award-winning best-selling female authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise $1 million to be shared between the USA's National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pixel Project to keep our efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you a little bit more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project and violence against women by visiting thepixelproject.net. So we have a very special guest today. We're going to have a live discussion and Q&A session with New York Times best-selling author Claudia Gray. So let's put Claudia on screen. Hey, Claudia.
Hi there.
Yeah, and Claudia's acclaimed books, best-selling books include the EVERNIGHT series, the Firebird series, and the Star Wars novel Lost Stars. So Claudia has also generously donated some really cool stuff to the stash of author goodies that we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Indiegogo fundraising page. And Claudia, do you have some books ready to show?
I do. For instance, donors may be able to get both of the books out now in the Firebird trilogy, beginning with 1,000 Pieces of You and 10,000 Skies Above You.
Yeah.
Can't show you, I can't include the third book because it's not out until November.
Yeah.
But we'll also have Spellcaster trilogy books and, hold on, let me read, copies of Star Wars Lost Stars.
Yeah, so the two Firebird books will be hard copy, and it'll be signed by Claudia, and it's for US donors only. And the 5 signed copies of Lost Stars are hardcover as well, and they'll be signed by Claudia, and it's for US donors only. And the 2 Spellcaster packs contains the first 2 books in the Spellcaster trilogy.
All three.
All three. Cool. We'll just amend that on. We'll amend that on the Indiegogo page, which we'll tell you guys all about later. And it'll be signed by Claudia. And the best thing is everything is going for donations for under 50. Under 50. Nothing over 40 actually. So this is going to be cool. So please give generously. All funds go towards helping to end violence against women. And now we'll just mosey over to Claudia, and Claudia is going to start reading something. So here's the treat from Claudia. Over to you, Claudia.
Okay. All right. I tend to prefer to do short readings because of the incident at my very first book event, where about 2 sentences in, I realized I had chosen something totally inappropriate and really, really long. So I like to keep it brief now. And so what I'm going to do is just read the first page of 1,000 Pieces of You. That's the first book in the Firebird trilogy. And in case you're not familiar with it, that is the story of Marguerite. And she is the daughter of 2 famous scientists, and she's chasing her father's killer through alternate dimensions. Parents invented this device that allows you to travel between worlds, but the thing is, you can only go to a world where you exist because you leap into another version of yourself. So Marguerite not only has to figure out this new world and go after the person who's hurt her father, she also has to figure out who she is in this world and how different she might be. And this is how book 1.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like Quantum Leap, a little bit.
Well, those weren't people he could be. They were just people. But there was also that same sense, though, of who am I and what are the problems I'm facing in this world. That's the same.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So here is how the first one begins. My hand shakes as I brace myself against the brick wall. Rain falls cold and sharp against my skin from a sky I've never seen before. It's hard to catch my breath to get any sense of where I am. All I know is that the Firebird worked. It hangs around my neck, still glowing with the heat of the journey. There's no time. I don't know whether I have minutes or seconds or even less. Desperately, I tug at these unfamiliar clothes. The short dress and shiny jacket I wear have no pockets, but there's a small bag dangling from my shoulder. When I fish inside, I can't find a pen, but there's a lipstick. Fingers trembling, I unscrew it and scrawl on a tattered poster on the wall of the alley. This is the message I must pass on, the one goal I have to remember after everything else I am is gone. Kill Paul Markov. So that's page 1.
Oh, cool. Wow, it's like she doesn't pull any punches, does she? She's gonna go kill this guy.
She's very, very angry. She just found this out about her dad, I think within 24 hours, certainly within 48 hours. And, you know, she's very raw. And one thing I really wanted for the book was to jump right in, to go immediately into the story. And so it begins from that very first leap.
Yeah, so you basically want to go from 0 to 60.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay, so let's get the discussion started. And if any of you have any questions, the question box is open. If you look to the right side of the screen, you can just type it in and click submit, and we'll see it, and I'll see it, and I'll read it out to Claudia. Otherwise, you can, you know, Claudia and I are just gonna be talking a lot about female characters and sexism and misogyny and violence against women in pop culture. So listen along if you want, ask questions if you want. We'll be here for the next almost an hour. So whenever you guys are ready. Now, my first question is, many of your stories include complex female protagonists, such as Bianca in EVERNIGHT, Marguerite in the Firebird series, and Nadia in the Spellcaster series. And they're all tough, resilient, and determined. But also very, very different characters. So who are the inspiration behind these wonderful female characters that you write?
Oh gosh. I'm sorry, I just whacked the computer stand there. There wasn't an earthquake in New Orleans. There's no sort of one character inspiration for any of them, I think. The closest that comes at all would be Nadia in the Spellcaster series, which probably came from the question, what if Hermione Granger had been the main character of the story? You know, I wanted to have somebody who, you know, there are a whole lot of books where a character discovers that she has this power. Somebody comes and tells her, or there's some big incident, and she turns out to have this ability she never dreamed of. And it's a really fun story, but I wanted to do something very different with her and talk about somebody who knew her power and owned it and had worked for it. And every single thing she could do, she knew why she could do it. So that was important for her. The others, I think, were a little bit more elliptical. They come from different places. I think you come up with an interest for each character, something that they love, something that they're passionate about. And I think I build a character out from that. Does that make sense? With Marguerite, for instance, she's a painter. She's an aspiring painter. She's already very practiced, and that ended up defining a lot of things about her. The things she notices and observes in the world, the fact that she's this creative person who's grown up in a house full of scientists, and so she maybe sort of underestimates herself, even though, you know, nobody's ever put her down for being different, but she's just used to other priorities. Everything else started to sort of come out from there with her. With Bianca, it was her astronomy, because I did like the idea of her being very sort of dreamy and always looking up and looking beyond what other people saw. Yeah,
the only other character named Bianca that I've known about is Bianca, the sister in The Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah.
So, like a curiously old-fashioned name, but given who her parents are, they must have, you know, it's something that is in character for them in the entire series.
Yeah, you picked up on that, which is great, because I think it's in Stargazer, somewhere in the series, she explains her parents, you know, they expect her to be immortal to be around for many centuries. And they know that names go in and out of fashion. You know, 100 years ago, it'd be really hip to be named Bertha. Not so much now. But they gave her a name out of Shakespeare, because even if the name Bianca became very old-fashioned or strange, you could always say, well, my parents loved Shakespeare. He's unlikely to not, you know, we're probably going to be talking about him for a long time to come. And so she would always have that as a way of explaining her name.
Yeah. So you mentioned Hermione as the inspiration behind Nadia, and that brings me to the second question, which is we're seeing the Hermione effect. Actually, we found that term on Tumblr. It's interesting. It's like someone's talking about the Hermione effect, coined that term, that now in pop culture with lots of capable and complex female protagonists and with agency. And they are in YA books in particular. So has the trend influenced your creative decisions with female characters in your books, or have you always just right out the gate, straight out the gate, always written strong female characters without any other due influence by this trend?
I hope it's the latter. I mean, I haven't specifically been like, hey, they're into really together girls now. I mean, your protagonist, all my main protagonists have been female, or in the case of Lost Stars, or a book I've just finished that's coming out next year, there's a male and female protagonist who share the story equally. You know, your protagonist has to be somebody who is dynamic and making decisions, even if they're making mistakes or doing the wrong thing. They still have to be the active person, not somebody acted upon, in order to be interesting. And hopefully I've never treated female characters differently in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's been a great thing, though, because so many YA books have gone on to be successful movies and television shows. And I think certainly, I mean, we're still hoping, we're still just beginning to see a little bit of a turnaround in terms of female representation in movies, just a little bit. But you have to think that the success of things like The Hunger Games plays a big role in that. And so I'm very proud that YA has been able to be a leader on that front.
Yeah.
And Star Wars too, now with Rey.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, do you think this is a trend, or if it's a change that it's like a bellwether, a signal that the change is growing and it's here to stay?
I don't know. I mean, it ought to be sticking. They ought to get the message, but wow, they should have gotten the message a long time ago. And in fact, they very deliberately, Hollywood stopped getting the message, because if you go and look back at old movies, you know, female movie stars led movies all the time back in the day. They didn't have any problem bankrolling huge movies with female leads. And that has sort of actually died out. You look at old movies in like the 1930s.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-code movies, before they got the really rules about how nobody ever swears or does anything bad in a movie that they had in place for a couple of decades. You look at some of those pre-code movies, there are some female characters there that might raise some eyebrows today in a good way. So yeah, I want to think Hollywood is finally catching on, but you know, sometimes you cannot make people see the truth. I hope they're starting to see it now, just in the form of money. I don't even have to ask them to come up with some huge spiritual awakening. I know their limits. Just look at the money. Look at the money. We want to give you more money.
Yeah.
To go see.
It was like we were chatting before we went live, right? We were chatting about Mad Max and the new Ghostbusters thing, and Mad Max, you know, like I was saying just now, it's like the biggest feminist bait and switch in a movie ever. And you know, you walk in thinking it's going to be testosterone laden, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, this is not testosterone laden. Well, it is, but
I think it is testosterone laden, but it's a movie that remembers the biological truth. Women make testosterone too, you know. So yeah, Furiosa is gonna swing out of the war rig while it's going 80 miles an hour and shoot some people with a crossbow and swing right back into the driver's seat. Of course she will.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's like you said just now, it is probably the best action movie most of us have seen in the last 5 years.
Oh, I think it's longer than that. I think it's a lot longer than that.
And basically, the themes are like they really incorporated the themes of violence against women, and they show the women first running away and then pushing back, and then when they come back round and they're headed back to reclaim the water for the plants, they're so the grannies just so badass. They actually they're willing to die. They're willing to sacrifice some of them in order to take back the water that's actually going to heal the world again. And the best part is it's the matriarchy wins at the end. They take their hits, but they win. It's like, and then all the
really, yeah. I mean, I love that part of it. I love the effects that it has on the male characters too. Nux is no less freed. He's still dying, but he's emotionally, sort of spiritually freed by realizing that Immortan Joe is selling a lie. You even have that scene, that sort of famous scene where Max washes off the blood of people he's killed with mother's milk. I mean, that's his purification moment in the movie. I love that. And I even love the fact the movie did get a little bit of criticism from some female feminist critics because it so embraces violence. They're not shying away from it here. And the big question is, can you destroy the master's house with the master's tools? I think Mad Max's answer is, let's try it and see. But I think what's really interesting, and I'm going to just preface this right now in case I'm getting carried away here. I have seen this movie 8 times so far. There will be more. But I've noticed that several characters are injured by their own weapons in the movie, and that includes the heroes of the movie. Like Max is threatened by his own car. Furiosa isn't actually stabbed with her own gear shift, but she's stabbed with one of the bone-handled gear shifts like she's been using on the war rig. And it's not even always against themselves. Remember in the very beginning when Max shoots at the Splendid Angharad and she has that little cut on her thigh?
Yeah.
And then later you see her slip and die, and we see, nobody else sees it, but we, the audience, see she slipped on the blood from her foot. She dies because Max shot at her instead of trying to work with her. And that's not for him to learn, but I think the movie is definitely saying, even if you're using violence in the most justified way, in the most honorable cause, there are repercussions to that, there's a real cost involved. I think it's just a tremendous movie, and it's a fantastic action movie. It didn't take anything away from it to make it a feminist action movie. It added stuff to it.
Yeah, and the you mentioned the Splendid Angara. She's like the second most badass female character in that movie because she's pregnant. She's heavily pregnant, and she was willing to die so that her sisters can actually live. Like they can actually escape and they won't be in sexual state. And the best thing, we also when we discuss, because the Pixel Project, our campaigns, we focus on mixing social media with pop culture and stuff, and online discussions and engagements. And people it's true, some feminists have pushed back on the violence, but we actually say that we actually told them what you said. It's they, in many parts of the world where women are second-class citizens, where they're chattels, like in Afghanistan, in parts of India, in many parts of Asia, and in some countries in Africa, the only way sometimes that they can actually fight back and get free is to use violence. They don't like using it, but they have to push back. And I think George Miller's film, I think Mad Max, actually picks up on that.
Yeah.
And what's really great about it is that it addresses the issues of sexual slavery and rape without visually showing it, but it shows the repercussions of it. And
then,
that
yeah, I read something really interesting. I think it was on Tumblr, talking about the fact that the one sort of violence against the body you're shown is shown against Max in the beginning, where they, you know, hunt him down, tie him up, are tattooing him, etc. And they're showing you violence against the body. And even if they filmed it in no different way, but that was a female character, there would be this creepy sexualized vibe to it. Like, just our cultural baggage would bring it in there and put it on there. But by having Max be the person who suffers that, it's shown very purely as what it is, you know, dehumanizing violence. And I think that link is pretty powerfully made, and it's a really smart choice, I think, of George Miller to show it that way. How he did not win Best Director this year, I will never be over that, ever. You're on notice, Academy.
He actually did something that, you know, we had to go back 30 years or so to Alien to see, which is, you know, that a lead female protagonist also makes a really great action movie. It does not detract, having a lead protagonist being female does not detract from it being a great horror movie or a great action movie.
Or the Hunger Games movies, you know, Katniss. I'd watch her before I'd watch Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher any day.
Okay, so let's take a pause in this discussion because we're going to go back and talk about Ghostbusters and all. And you have a question from the audience. Luana Pontes. Hi, Luana. She said, hey, Claudia, you are super cool. So how was the experience of being able to write a Princess Leia-based novel?
Yeah, I have that book coming out in May. That is Star Wars Bloodlines. That was huge in some ways because I was 7 years old when Star Wars came out, which was a very good age to have it imprint on your brain forever. So actually being able, you know, like I had a Princess Leia doll, I had the Princess Leia action figures, and this was just sort of like the final step in that progression. It's like now you actually get the character Princess Leia and you get to have her do things that she canonically has done. And so that part of it was a real delight.
Okay. So Luana, I hope that answers your question. So
yeah, I can't say too much about Bloodline yet because it's not out for another couple of months, but that much I can say.
Oh, is it coming out in the summer? It's
coming out right at the beginning of May. I'm blanking on the exact date. Is it May 3rd? I think it's the first Tuesday in May.
Okay, so everybody put that date down in your diaries.
Yes, right now.
Yeah, write them down. So going back to talking about female leads in movies, the recent Ghostbusters trailer came out, and the backlash from fanboys was huge. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because they keep saying that, you know, if someone points out what, you know, their gendered insults, that, you know, that it's feminists bringing it all down. So what's your take on the whole thing? I mean, it looks great. I mean, the trailer looks great. It looks like something
it looks funny. You know, and I love all of those performers. I think they're funny. I've tended to enjoy Paul Feig movies. So, you know, and I love Ghostbusters. So obviously I'm looking forward to that. I sort of feel like if that ruins your childhood, and first of all, like half the people saying that were not even alive when Ghostbusters came out. So that's not your childhood, it's mine. Thank you very much. You know, but if that ruins it for you, I think you really have to ask yourself why that would be. Like, why would that ruin anything for you? It's not like, you know, there's some real profession of ghost busting that we definitely for sure know men are better at doing. Like, I don't even know what that would involve exactly. But, you know, I mean, it's ghost busting. The whole point is anybody can imagine themselves doing this. And that's, you know, male, female, any race. you know, anybody ought to be able to imagine themselves having fun with that. And, you know, some guy who I then promptly blocked on Twitter was like, well, it's sexist to have all female leads. And I'm like, please look at all the movies with all male leads and tell me again, like, the scale is still nowhere near balanced at all. And it's really funny how many people only seem to get angry at the idea of exclusion when they might be the ones being excluded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if the purpose is different, you know, I don't think there's anything not misogynistic, hateful about the fact that there aren't any guys in the leads. I think, honestly, it's what you almost have to do to get past the, I think if you cast men, they're going to be standing in the shadows of Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, and now who played Winston Zeddemore? And see, I know Winston Zeddemore, but you know, I think the comparisons would line up too strongly. Whereas when you have female actors in the role, you have female characters, they get to feel more like they stand on their own in a way.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that even with all the haters coming out against it, I read an article where people are actually, you know, people who are cheering the film on are actually being drowned out. And one of the interesting things is the Kate McKinnon character, Gillian Holtzman, Dr. Holtzman, who's supposed to be a genius mechanical engineer in the film, a nuclear engineer. And she's got her own fan club now. Like, people are going, that's great, because like when you look when you watch the trailer, she stands out. Like, she
yeah, and I love the way her hair and her glasses clearly are a nod to Egon from the Real Ghostbusters animated show. The degree to which I may be into Ghostbusters is showing. But I love that they looked at that, and I love that they took some nods from that, because that was sort of like, it began as sort of a movie ripoff cartoon, and then they ended up kind of doing some interesting stuff with it. So I love that they went that way with sort of the Egon parallels and did that a little differently. And just the fact that they have that tells me that the people who are working on this really love the Ghostbusters mythos and really looked into all of it and really wanted to have fun and pay homage.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is that there was an interview with Kate McKinnon, and she said that she loves her Ghostbuster costume because it doesn't. She says it's comfortable, it covers all of me, and I get to do cool things, and girls and kids get to see women actually doing like cool engineering stuff and fighting the bad guys. And I can, and something really funny, she said, oh, and I run around with no heels. I'm actually running around with shoes I can run around in.
Yeah.
And I thought that's so cool, because, you know, Kate McKinnon's like, when she's not in character, you know, you would look at her and you would think, oh, she's blonde and she's skinny and she's all the stereotypes when it comes to, you know, approved female ideals of beauty. But she does this character, even from what we see in the trailer, it's like, I mean, the first scene that they cut to her, she's like sitting there like a guy. She's like with her boots on the table and she's fiddling. Her hair's a mess. She's got goggles in it. She's fiddling her stuff. And I think, oh, this is going to be cool. This is,
yeah. It's been a good couple of years for sort of finally pushing back against some of that stuff. It was a good year for women in flats in the movies between Mad Max and Star Wars, etc. Or you had, and this is a slightly different example, but I still thought it was really striking. If you watch How to Get Away with Murder, I guess it was a little more than a year ago, but that scene where Viola Davis takes off her makeup and her wig, I mean, just strips down to her face in front of the camera. It was so striking because you never see it. You never see somebody just, you know, an actress, even an actress who's be aged or sick, you know, like you're supposed to be in the hospital dying of something, you still got lip liner on, you know, and it was really sort of great to just see that shown, and it felt really brave, and I know it had to be brave for her, but I hope that's going to be more ordinary in the future.
Yeah.
And about no makeup, of course, I mean Hollywood no makeup, which is still makeup, but you know, more to the level of what the other actors are wearing.
Yeah, and have you seen the music video for Try by Colby Calais?
I have not.
I'll send you the link after this. And basically, the song is all about this. Like, she shows her and a bunch of women of all ethnicities and sizes and types of beauty with makeup on. And then after that, they show them taking off their makeup and presenting a totally makeupless face. And Kobe herself showed how she takes off her makeup throughout the music video. Oh, the amount of stuff we women put on our faces, it's like, and the fake hair and the fake eyelashes and the tan, and she's like wiping everything off, and guess what? We all actually look okay without makeup.
Yeah, I mean, I am somebody, as you may be able to tell, this is not my natural lip color. I enjoy playing with makeup, but I don't like the fact that there's this sense that you almost have to wear it leaving the house, or else people are like, are you sick? You know, are you okay? You know, that's the part that I don't care for as much.
Yeah, so.
No, I want to see that video. That sounds amazing.
Okay, if you just joined us, Claudia Gray, we're here with Claudia Gray, and we're talking about sexism and misogyny and violence against women in her books and in pop culture. So if you just joined us, you can see the Q&A box on the right of the screen, and you can just type your questions in and click submit, and we'll read it out to Claudia, and Claudia will answer you in real time. Yes, you can get your answer immediately and straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. Is that the?
I'm the horse in this scenario. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay, it's just an expression. Sorry, didn't mean.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It's all good.
Okay, so now we've been talking about Mad Max and your books and Ghostbusters. So that leads on to the next question, which is geek culture in general, and especially or including science fiction and fantasy, has its share of critics saying that it's still too male-dominated despite a rising number of prominent, well-respected, and well-known female authors. What do you think needs to be done to make geek culture as a whole, whether it's comics or gaming or books or movies, more welcoming for women and girls?
I admit I'm going to have some trouble answering this question because the areas of fandom I have always hung out with, and I want to make it absolutely clear that my geek cred is mighty. You know, I have wasted way more time. Actually, now that I get to write science fiction and Star Wars books, it's like, oh, no, it was career preparation. But I didn't know that at the time. They were always very female dominated. Mostly I hung out in fan fiction. World, writing fan fiction, reading fan fiction, etc. And those were almost entirely women, and we wrote for each other, and you know, there wasn't any sense that we were excluding anybody, but I don't know why guys were less interested in that, or they wrote different kinds of fic. I don't know, but you know, that was what we played. That was the fun of it for me. And I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe some of the trick is just recognizing that this is out there, that fandom, quote unquote, isn't necessarily, I don't know, the sub forum on Reddit about this thing. You know, like, that's not, I don't see where we have to enshrine that and say that's fandom or that's real fandom. You know, when you go on Tumblr and you see who's making these beautiful gift sets about movies or TV shows or books, you know, those tend to be female users who are doing that. And, you know, tons and tons and tons of women are there and doing amazing fanish things. And I guess it's more just about sort of recognizing that they're there, and that, you know, I don't know, I guess maybe there's also sort of a sense, at least in some circles, that, like, I don't know, that writing fanfic is somehow like a lesser or weirder form of fandom than memorizing you know, like spaceship models. And, you know, I don't really think that's true. It's all a little bit weird. That's why we're in fandom, you know, but yeah, I think we just kind of have to stop denigrating how different people do fandom and sort of assuming that ways that more women seem to be drawn to are somehow lesser or worse. You know, and you know, hopefully some of that is coming through, but I don't know.
Yeah, because you know, there's still like reports of conventions having all-male panels talking about female fiction or female movies, or they have reports of sexual assault and harassment at cons, and they even have a grassroots group now pushing back against that, because they say a lot of women who cosplay at cons get propositioned, get photographed without being asked, you know, or they get approached by creepy men, or they get touched inappropriately. So people.
Yeah, hopefully you're getting a little bit more understanding, particularly as cosplay catches on more and more. I think hopefully you're getting a little bit more understanding from people like, wait, no, this is a fan being fanish, not some sort of thing for my amusement. You know, and cons, you know, I really haven't been to many cons that are true sci-fi cons yet. Or rather, the ones I have been to have been things like San Diego, which is huge and is everything, and so isn't quite the same. You know, I'm not quite sure what it is that leads to this sort of odd, I don't know, just complete, I don't know. I mean, what is it? What is it? Why would people at a sci-fi con thing like, oh, this is totally an appropriate thing to say to a human being when it really clearly is not? I don't know quite what it is about fan culture that brings that out. You know, I mean, there are other cultures, you know, I don't know. I used to work in law firm marketing, just as glamorous as it sounds. And, you know, there was a very male dominated thing, and you would go to big industry things and you might feel there was some sexism inherent, but, you know, nobody was going to say some of the stuff to you that you hear reported said at some cons. Maybe this is because these guys understood what it would mean to be sued. I don't know. But I don't know what it is. I don't know. I think there's maybe some sense that cons are supposed to be a sort of vacation from reality in a way, but I don't see why people's idea of fun and a vacation from reality is also a vacation from treating other people well. That I don't get.
Yeah, it's I think maybe it's like the same principle as street harassment, where men, you know, women are out in public spaces, but men think that they still own women's bodies and they are entitled to the right to, you know, make remarks about women's bodies, to touch women inappropriately and stuff. It's you know, people are pushing back against street harassment and harassment. Yeah, and I think harassment at cons, much of it is like street harassment. You know, you're walking around in a public space. And there are some fanboys who think that, you know, just because you dress like their favorite character in a comic book or something, that they have the right to snap the pictures of you and touch you inappropriately and all. It's just yeah, that face. Yeah. Okay, so you have another question for the audience. It's Luana again. And she said, so we'll just take a break from talking about sexism and all. And she says, what tips would you give to someone who's interested in becoming a writer?
Okay, these are my 3 main pieces of advice. And they're going to sound very elementary, but I really do believe these are the 3 most important things without which nothing is going to get you anywhere. Number 1, read everything you can, especially read the kind of stuff you want to write, but don't only read that. Try other genres, try nonfiction, pick up stuff that you might not expect would inspire you. Maybe it's not for you, maybe it is. And that may sound so basic, but I never cease to be surprised at the number of people who want to write books, but only watch movies. And while movies can teach you about storytelling, they're not going to teach you about writing. And when you're reading, I think that's how you discover the kinds of characters and stories that move you the most. And you don't have to go through and read, taking notes in the margins about how things are done in it. You're going to internalize, you're going to understand, like, oh, look, that's how somebody set up that plot twist, or, oh, wow, I see how they foreshadowed this ending. You know, you will recognize these things through reading and through figuring out what you love. And being an avid reader is an essential part of learning to write. 2, write as much as you can. Now, a lot of the standard advice says write every day, and I know a lot of people swear by that. I personally don't necessarily do that. I write most days, but not every day. But the thing is, you have to make writing a regular part of your life. You're never asking yourself, when will I find time to write? Because you know you're going to be writing every time you don't have to be doing something else. You know you're going to be drawn back to work on this, because only when you're writing that much are you going to write all the really bad pages you have to write before you start discovering your voice. And I think a big part of learning how to write is figuring out who you are as a writer, because I mean, and that could be very little basic things. Do you need to outline in advance, or does that ruin it for you? You work best in the morning or at night? Are you one of those people who needs to write longhand, in which case, oh my God, I don't know how you do it. My hand would have fallen off if I couldn't use a computer. You know, what do you need to make yourself work well? Because you have to figure these things out. They're very sort of nuts and bolts and unromantic things, I guess, to think about with writing, but they're necessary. You're going to need that. And only by writing very, very regularly are you going to get that kind of knowledge of yourself and the kind of practice you need to get your voice out there. And third, I would say that when you finally get ready to put some stuff out there, do a little bit of research to find out how to best take care, oh, earthquake again, because my foot, how to take care of what you've written. I think, I mean, the upsurge in self-publishing has been a great thing in a lot of ways. It's allowed a lot of people to sort of market to something that maybe publishers hadn't realized there was an audience for. You know, you've got to see people from different parts of the world, different ages, different ethnic groups, everything, be able to sort of get their voices out there. But I also think some people kind of rush into self-publishing without realizing how much work really is involved, how uncertain the returns can be, you know, and maybe, you know, would traditional publishing have worked better? And then you also have some people who want to go after traditional publishing and may just like bang their heads into the wall because they don't understand what agents they should be going for, or, you know, maybe what they're writing is a better vehicle for self-publishing, etc. I think you see a lot of people who run into a problem with the process and then feel like the problem is their writing, and that may not be true at all. So when the time comes when you have stuff that you want to get out there, you know, don't be impatient. Don't make too many assumptions. Like, really take some time, research, look around, see what other people who are writing the kind of things you're writing are doing. See how you personally want to try to approach it, and, you know, take good care of your writing when you're out there. Don't assume that sort of once you've got that first book that now everything's ready to fly. Like, you really need, I got very lucky with my first publishing contract. In a lot of ways, I got it before I wasn't ready, and I had to learn stuff on the go. And don't get me wrong, I'm very, very happy with that first book and everything that's come from it. And I'm grateful for that entire process. But, you know, it might have been a little easier if I'd known a little bit more up front.
Okay. So hope that answers your question, Luana, and everyone who's watching out there. So I bet some of you are already writing your stories, and hopefully in the future we can read your stories. Always welcome to have more stories. So speaking about stories, and bringing us back to the topic of violence against women. So recently, well, over the last couple of years, with the furor over Game of Thrones, the issue of the gratuitous use of rape and other forms of violence against women in pop culture has been raised and discussed publicly. So there are lots and lots of discussion, lots and lots of arguing, lots and lots of flaming each other on fan columns and forums and stuff. And so the question is, how do you think, Claudia, that authors can tackle issues of violence against women in their stories appropriately and portray female characters who have survived violence in, complex and well-rounded ways, not just sticking them in the victim box and just putting them in the corner? So
it's a complicated question, and the first thing that comes to mind is actually something those of you who love urban fantasy have no doubt read and enjoyed the work of Seanan McGuire. And Seanan had a post a few years ago where somebody literally wrote into her and said, but when does the female lead character get raped? And she was like, when? And they said, but she does risky things, it's likely. And she said, no. And basically she said, I know that this is realistic and I know it happens to a lot of people, and I think people can deal with that in fiction. And she said, however, you can also write fiction and swear that that's never going to happen, and give your readers, male and female, a guarantee that maybe this is a place where they don't have to confront that this is a fantasy and this is fun and you're not going to have to deal with that in that way. And I think, and I respect that choice. Like, I mean, we need depictions and portrayals that are going to be powerful and three-dimensional, but it has been so overused. Like, I was raped or sexually abused, like, for female characters, has been so overused as their defining characteristic, and you want to see it done smarter, but you also want to see things where there's another defining characteristic, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's very hard to do. I think it's difficult because you mentioned something like this and it is very powerful and it is very dramatic, but if it's not defining that character, then it's this very interesting thing to stir in. I've never written that at all. And I'm not saying I won't, I'm not saying I will. It's a difficult thing to do well. And I don't blame anybody for feeling intimidated by it. You probably should feel kind of intimidated by it. And I'm grateful that there are as many people out there as there are who are trying to be thoughtful and show full three-dimensional portraits of characters who are not completely defined by a horrible thing that has happened to them, which I think is amazing. And now I'm going to sort of break my own rule, but we're talking about storytelling. One thing that I thought did an amazing job of this recently was the television show Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah,
on Netflix. That I thought that did an amazing job of showing Jessica dealing with the aftermath of sexual abuse and not shying away from any of what happened or how horrible it was, but making it clear that she has this other personality and this other direction in life, and as damaged as she is, that's not all she is. And I thought that was handled really, really well.
Yeah, it's what all, when Jessica Jones came out, all of us are working in the anti-violence against women movement. We all flocked to see it, and it's been spreading. It spread like wildfire by word of mouth, because you're like, this is what PTSD after abuse looks like. This is how many of us cope with. Of course, we don't have superpowers like Jessica Jones, but it's everyone copes with it in different ways. And we did have Seanan as a guest like last year, and she did talk about it. And and we've also had several talked about what you mentioned about what she wrote about rape, using the rape trope in fiction, and we also have authors who have used the rape trope, but in very thoughtful ways. And the common denominator they had, the common thing they had that they kept mentioning over and over again is that you can use the rape trope, but you have to show the consequences and the repercussions of that horrible thing that happened and how the character is dealing with it, because you can't just have that happen and just say, oh, okay, let's just march on our way. So Jessica Jones uses that principle. We actually get to see the aftermath. I mean, when right from episode 1, we start seeing the aftermath of what happened to her. So that,
sorry, something hit the window behind me, so I had a moment of alarm there. Sorry.
oh, okay. So we have someone has posted a question. It's Sydney Brown. And yay, Sydney, we actually have some good news for you. And I'll read this out. Sydney says, you are going to be at Salt Lake Comic-Con fan experience. I was wondering where I could find you, and are you selling copies of your books and giving autographs?
I don't have my schedule in front of me right now, but I will be appearing, I think, every day of Salt Lake City Comic-Con. I'm going to be doing multiple panels, and there will be some signings. So yes, I'm good to sign books. I believe that they're going to have Lost Stars and the Firebird series there for sale. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. But yes, if you're there, there are absolutely going to be times available for me to sign and chat and panels for you to come and talk with. So yes, you know, we're going to be able to make that work. I'm sorry I haven't got it right in front of me, but I actually have a pretty full schedule, so I don't have it memorized for those days. Yeah. But no, I'm going to look forward to seeing you there, Sydney.
Yeah, and Sydney, if you really want the books before you get to the con, we have them up. We have them up on the Indiegogo page where you can donate to get. And I guess you're in the US, so you know, we've got the Spellcaster series there, we've got the Firebird series, we've got Lost Stars, they're all up on our Indiegogo page. So please stay right on to the end. We've got another 10 to 15 minutes. So stay to the end, and we'll we'll be putting up a slide showing you where to go, and Claudia will sign them. Claudia will mail them to you straight from Claudia, and then you can bring them along with you and talk to Claudia about them at the con. And the money.
Well, the con is only a week, what, 2 weeks from now? 2 weeks from now. So okay, maybe that's not going to work for the con itself, but for all the rest of you, that works.
Yeah, that works, and you know, all the funds raised go towards helping stop violence against women. So you're getting some treats from Claudia. You can actually complete your collection of Claudia's books. And she'll sign all of them, and you'll be helping stop violence as well. So, all right. So now let's go to the next question. And guys, we have only about 10 to 15 minutes left here. And if you have any questions, just ask them. Ask them now before Claudia says good night and goes away. Okay, so in your opinion, how can authors strike a balance in their storytelling between telling a really compelling story and raising awareness about sexism and gender-based violence in a way that shows readers the importance of respecting women as equals and as human beings, and doing that whole balancing act without sounding pedantic or preachy?
I think basically the answer is that you have to come at it. I think your story has to be about your story, and then you deal with those issues as the story takes them to you. I think if you design the story just to get to the issue, people know that. I think people feel kind of preached to. And even if you really agree with the message or you really need to hear the message, I think sometimes that they close off a little bit. But I feel like if your message, if your book takes you, your story takes you to a place where you need to deal with that, and then you deal with that, that I think is when it's the most powerful, is when you deal with it when the character would be dealing with it in this situation, in this story, and in the way that they would deal with it. Obviously, different characters are going to react entirely differently to issues like this. You know, some people are going to crumple. Some people are going to mouth right back. You know, if it were Nadia from Spellcaster, she would sort of brush it off and then like go away and do a spell, and that person's going to be deeply sorry. But you know, it's yeah, I think you have to let the story be the driver, because I think no matter how good you are with the message, I think when you put it first, absolutely first, except, you know, there are stories like, for, we were talking about Mad Max, that's a story that's completely based about sexual violence and getting away from that. And there the message and the narrative are completely joined. And that's completely a whole. You don't feel like they're taking things away from the car chase to talk about this. It's all one story. You know, and unless your story is sort of that way, then I think, you know, go, I guess that also is the same. You know, you go there when the story takes you there. Maybe the entire story is designed to take you there. But I think that's sort of the key thing. And I think that also helps, like we said, you want to portray this as not the only defining thing about a character. And I think when you have it be a part of their story and not their story, that helps show them in a more well-rounded light, you know, as a human being who's dealing with repercussions in life and all of this in an organic way.
Okay, so final questions. And guys, get your final questions in, because we're asking our final questions now, a couple of final questions. So you have been so very incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women work as a whole. So why do you support the cause to end violence against women?
Oh, gosh. I mean, of course you do. That's one of the things. How do you answer that exactly? You know, it's important, I think, to raise awareness. I think that there are so many support systems out there that need a little bit more support from us, whether or not that's, you know, helplines, which are huge, shelters. There's so many services out there that I guess we could take our good intentions and actually turn into action in the world. And projects like this one that you have put together help us do that. You know, take our good hopes and actually turn them into positive, real world change.
Yeah, it's we connect people, you know, with, like I was telling you at the before we went on air, every day we have 4 hours worth of tweeting helplines from 40 countries, and the feedback that we get is, oh my God, where were you guys when, you know, not in a way, but they're like, we wish you guys were around, or I wish you guys were around when, you know, when I was suffering through domestic violence, or when I was recovering from the sexual assault that I suffered, because there is a disconnect between this, there's a gap there, not a disconnect, but a gap between, you know, services which are already there. Services are there. There are shelters, there are helplines, there are counselors, there are people doing pro bono work, and the victims and survivors who need that, and their friends and families who don't know how to help them. So we bring,
and this is great, because you get to both raise money for these things and also just raise awareness that they're out there. You know, hopefully somebody who's seeing this is seeing what they need here, you know, that a helpline they didn't know about before, a resource they hadn't heard of that may be helpful to them.
It's amazing, Claudia. So many people, even in the US, so many people don't know that there's a national domestic violence helpline in their country. They don't know that every province or every state has have rape and sexual assault centers with counselors and with, you know, with medical professionals and law and legal professionals there to help them. So, you know, half the battle in a way is making sure that people who need the help can get hold of the phone number or the website or the name of an organization that can, a specific organization that can help them, because there's so many forms of violence against women. So many service providers, they specialize in one or the other. So we try to get them out to people and connect people via social media. And yeah, and the last question before we go to the wrap up is, in your opinion, how can authors like yourself best support efforts to kick off social change to end violence against women?
Obviously, we participate in things like this when we get the chance, which is tremendous. I think you have to be you just have to be open, I think, to finding those opportunities and not be afraid to speak out. And there have been so many YA writers that have done such tremendous work. I mean, obviously, Laurie Halse Anderson with Speak, you know, and so many other writers, I think, have helped bring this forward and couch this topic in a way that helps maybe young readers recognize this for what it is, because of course, you know, there are so many disguises hung over so much of this kind of abuse or manipulation or whatever to make it look like something other than it is. But you know, I think you have to work honestly and look for the opportunities to pitch in where you can, whether that's donating time, donating books, being able to talk to readers in different contexts about this. I think that's got to be where you begin.
Yeah, and what I noticed about your EVERNIGHT series, even in the first book, you actually like drop little breadcrumbs about what abusive behavior looks like, because you have one character say to Bianca, you know, that behavior that Lucas, yeah, of course we know after that we know why he's behaving like that, but you know they did point out that, you know, one other character did point out to Bianca that that's not very healthy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, in the book, it turns out like he has these impulses because he's a trained vampire fighter, you know, and it's like, however, in real life, this is probably not the reason he's behaving in this way, you know, and hopefully pointing that out. Like, I hope it didn't end up coming up as any sort of a hedge in any way, but I like the fact that I was able to have a scene where a character was able to say that to a friend and they were able to hear that and talk about that, even though it didn't wind up applying in that specific case. You know, I'm glad that they are able to talk about that and to look at potential warning signs, just to have your eyes open.
And they're correct. You know, I was reading that and I'm thinking, wow, if, you know, if the girls and boys reading this series, if they pick up on that, I mean, you know, maybe they read that and maybe when they go to school and they realize that, you know, their friend is in a relationship where it could be unhealthy, then they could actually figure it out. Because sometimes when you're very young, in fact, not just when you're very young, but, you know, in general, people don't pick up on abusive signals. So
right.
They don't know what it looks like.
There's a real tendency in culture, not just aimed toward young people either, but to romanticize things that are highly dramatic, impassioned, violent, maybe not in the sense of like violence, but just tumultuous, as being more romantic or more passionate or more whatever. And, you know, maybe in some sort of movie that might be true. In real life, that is almost never the case. Almost never. You know, and I think you need to be able to look at that for what it is and not romanticize that kind of behavior.
Okay, so let's go to the wrap up. Guys, we have 5-10 minutes left, but we're going to wrap up now. If you want to get your questions in, get them in now. We can take your questions after the wrap up. We should take another 3 or 4 minutes. So basically, we're just coming to the end of our discussion with Claudia. And as mentioned earlier, Claudia has generously donated 2 Firebird packs. She's got 2 of these, and it contained the first 2 books in the Firebird series. And she'll be signing them, and they are first edition hard copies. So she's got a bit. Yay! 1,000 pieces of you. Look at that. That's gorgeous. I mean,
that's the Vanna moment here.
Is the cover art in front meant to be an approximation of Marguerite's art?
Not exactly. That's not exactly your kind of painting, but the fact that you do have it look like paint is a nod to her as a writer, and you can see, well, you're not going to be able to see it through this connection, but on the art on the cover, you can see the canvas even bleeding through a little bit. So it's a nod to her as an artist, even though it's not exactly a representation of her art.
Yeah, I thought those books, the covers are really cool.
Aren't they?
They are, because you see a lot of YA books, and I know that a lot of authors don't have control over the covers of their books. And you see a lot of YA books with girls and friends. Sometimes they cut up the hair. They just show them.
Like this one, for instance.
No, not like that one.
No. I mean, it's true. It's a girl in an evening gown. We got a lot of girls in evening gowns.
I'm talking about those covers where they only show the body of the female protagonist, but they cut off the head. So
those tend to be more like urban fantasy stuff, though. With the headless. Usually, you get to have a head in YA. Urban fantasy, all of a sudden, her butt's toward the viewer, and she has no head.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because you just accurately described some of the. And there are 2 spellcaster packs, one of the books that Claudia held up just now. There are 2 spellcaster packs.
There's a third book, but I only have 2 hands. Yeah,
and these are paperback, and Claudia will sign them and send them to you wherever you are in the world, because they're the paperbacks. And for the Firebook packs, she'll send them to any donor in the US. And she also has 5 signed copies of Lost Stars, hardcover, first edition, and it's a best-selling Star Wars novel. So Claudia will sign it for you, and I don't know, Claudia, will you personalize it if someone says, please make it out to dear so-and-so?
Yes, absolutely, within reason. You know, nobody, if something weirdly, I don't even know what you would put that I wouldn't put on there, but yes, I'm ready to personalize.
Oh yeah, oh, you know Neil Gaiman, he signed some books for me, and he actually drew little flowers and stuff. And apparently,
don't go raising expectations, Rachel. My art ability is pretty low.
Okay, so so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the slide on screen, guys, to show you where you can get all these goodies. And the best thing is, and I was telling Claudia just now, is there's nothing over 50. Everything is under 50 for you guys. So we just
$50. You got it. You can do it.
Yeah. So let me share this. Okay.
Real quick, I'm going to interject. Okay. My laptop is running really low on power, so I may vanish.
Yeah, we'll just very quickly do this. So you see the slide on the screen, guys, and so you can donate to get geeky goodies at Indiegogo. Geeky goodies like what Claudia has donated to put up there at is.gd/r4p Indiegogo IWD 2016, and it's case sensitive, so make sure you get that down. And PayPal donors, if you don't have a credit card, PayPal donors can go to is.gd/r4p IWD 2016. And if you want, and we don't have the goodies put up there, but if you want one, please email us before you do that, so we can make arrangements for you, and we can adjust the number of copies available on Indiegogo, so that someone else wouldn't pick it up before you get to it. And to find out more about Read for Pixels, go to is.gd/readforpixels. And if you want to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, go visit the Pixel Project's website at www.thepixelproject.net. And once again, to find out more about Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, please visit reveal.thepixelproject.net to learn more about it, and donate generously to help us reveal pixels and raise the $1 million for the cause. So I'm gonna stop sharing this now, guys. Okay, so Claudia and I are gonna bid you good day or good night wherever you're in the world. I'll put Claudia on the screen again so she can say bye. There you go. Claudia, you're on the screen to say bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and guys.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me and for everything that you have done to help put this together.
Okay. Oh, no, it's not Rachel, it's Regina.
Oh, my God. I just ruined it all.
Yeah, and guys, if you haven't caught the first part of the Google Hangout, you can go to our channel on YouTube. It's the Pixel Project. Just type in the Pixel Project, go there. It will be rendering now, but there'll be a recording of it, and Claudia will probably share it on her Facebook page and Tumblr.
Yes.
So everybody, good night, and have a great evening, and have a good week ahead. Bye, guys.
Bye.